Hey, how's everybody doing? Welcome to Talking Shit with your boy, the Manic Genius and the Sophisticated Jerk.
What up? What up? What up?
All right, y'all. So y'all know we got another clip for y'all. Let me go ahead and pull that up, man. I'm trying to get a little quicker with these intros. Manic was like, let's just go in, man. He said he got a lot to say on this one. So yeah, the main purpose of this clip is he's gonna break down like the taxes we pay on everything. So I'll go ahead and just jump into it.
How did we go from fighting a revolution over a 2% tax on a breakfast beverage to what we pay today? And we're taxed on money when we receive it, when we spend it, when we keep it, when we invest it, and even when we die with it. It gets worse. We commute to work to make that money in a car that is taxed again to register on roads we're already taxed. Gas that is taxed even further, and many times through tolls that tax you again. And that's to maintain bridges and highways and tunnels that already have billions of dollars, taxpayer dollars, allocated to them, and they're still falling apart. And then when you get to your office that is taxed to exist, in a corporation that is also taxed to do business, that almost certainly requires permits and other things, which are another tax, you are paid a paycheck that the corporation must match another payroll tax on top of what they have to pay you. Then you go to a home of which you are taxed to own every single year that we bought with money that the government already taxed us on. Oh, by the way, the more money you make and the more you pay in taxes warrants the government taking more and even higher percentages of your money. Now, if you're angry, hold that thought. Our federal tax code is 2,600 pages, 400 pages longer than the unabridged version of the Webster Dictionary. But if you read that tax law cover to cover and you did your taxes solely based on that, you'd probably go to jail. Why? Because that does not include the over 9,000 pages of additional IRS regulations that were never passed into law, but rather written by some bureaucrat sitting in his office that we still have to abide by. Congress never passed that. How did we go from
Yeah, that's
Oh, that was a lot.
so what's your take on that, man?
I mean, he's got a point. We're taxed on everything. We are taxed. He just points out though that we are taxed, and it is excessive. When you think about it and how our history and how we have changed, but I don't know how much traveling he's done. But if you go to other countries that aren't as taxed, their roads look nothing like ours.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Their buildings look nothing like ours. The regulations on things look nothing like ours. So, I mean, from a standpoint, outside looking in, taxes, they are a lot. But we not only take care of, as the United States, we not only take care of ourselves, the roads, the buildings, citizens, any type of assistance, if you've ever received it. We also, support every country that's out there, damn near. So when people ask where the tax is going, you know, they're going all over the place.
Yeah, so I think what people get mad about, because like you said, that's a good point, man. Where we got to pay something because it's like, man, it does cost to run a country and pay for infrastructure. You know what I'm saying? So like you said, yeah, when you compare us up to a lot of countries, man, we do got a lot of like I'll say positive infrastructure that like running water, clean for the most part and stuff like that. It's like you said, building skylines and shit. So stable roads and stuff. Not saying we're perfect, but that is there. But like you mentioned, I like what you pointed out, where it's just like we take care of almost all these other countries. So it's just like, when he was breaking down, like, hey man, we're taxed on this. On the flip side, we're taxed again. With like for the house example, most people right now are struggling. House prices are so high. So like when they're like, hey, we're going to tax you on the money you make. Then we're going to tax you again on the house. It's just like, maybe we got to start cut back on, I'll say, some of those expenses for other countries and stuff. So we could, I say, lower that burden on our own people and stuff. So it's like, man, you can't just remove all taxes, but you definitely got to find some ways to pass on some, I'll say, some of those like tax savings to us versus like everybody else. So it's just like, especially now, like what I said, like all those hardships people are facing, like even on gas and all that stuff. So like you said, you definitely got to pay taxes to a certain degree, but the way that they're describing it is just way too much. Because even like I never agree with the death tax.
Yeah.
You know, like once you pass away and then they're taxing that money. I'm like, come on, man, like that's supposed to go on to your legacy and stuff like that. So yeah, some things they got to change. And then when he made that reference, like with the pages on all the like tax code, it's like, yeah, they got to find a way to simplify it.
Yeah. But you know what? I think the tax code, it's made not to be simple. It's made to be convoluted and complex, because it's a system, and in any system, there's stakeholders that, their livelihoods depend on that. So getting somebody to change the tax code, if I'm a subject matter expert in tax code, I'm not going to want them to simplify it and possibly take me out of a job. So it's just like a lot of people don't realize the impact of making change, and they think that by making a change, it might be more beneficial to you as a consumer from the outside looking in. But there's a whole infrastructure that's employs you know hundreds of thousands of people, that shaking up a move like that to simplify things, it's just not it's not one of those things that's going to happen overnight. And I love this conversation, because I think oftentimes we just get used to paying something and you don't really think about it. But he made very interesting points on all the things that we're taxed on. We're taxed on the money we earn, then we taxed on the money we spend, and then even the items we buy, we're taxed on that to just have that item that we already were taxed on. So like a car, for example, like your salary's taxed, and then you buy this car that has a tax. And now that you own this property, it's taxed again because you're paying property taxes on something you already own, versus, you buy a shirt, you buy a shirt or something. You're not taxed on that item anymore because you own it now. So, it's only for like high ticket items, and it's done like that on purpose, so there's definitely things that should change. But I really like the conversation because hopefully somebody young watching this will take this type of video a step further and actually figure out why it is what it is and how can we actually change it. And unfortunately, this falls right into the lane of politics. So many people complain about how a system is, but won't do the due diligence to actually figure out what they can do and what impact they can make. Because, it's I don't know if it's completely free to run, but all these people in Congress and in charge, like, we put them in positions. We didn't question, the nepotism when you see, such and such his son or such and such his daughter or such and such his cousin run and just hold these seats and make these decisions. So, the onus comes right back on us. If we sit up here and just don't have a say and an input, but then want to complain on the outcome, we really ain't got much to say.
Yeah, I like what you said. Nah, sometimes it's starting a conversation. So we're not ones to complain because, like you said, there's layers underneath. So, like you said, there's always going to be an industry impacted. But where I would say nowadays, with just the rise in house costs and like just inflation, it's like something's got to be done because you can't let things get pushed out of tolerance. So, yeah, like you said, hopefully somebody takes this and looks at it a little differently because, like you said, high ticket items. It's just like, man, we don't need those to cost too much because, just the way it impacts everybody's life. And now it's just like a lot of people are struggling. So it's just like, hey, they do need to like evaluate, some of these taxes that's out there where, if people are sitting there spending all that money on the loan itself, then they got to get taxed on it. It's just like, hey,
Yeah.
man, you got to give people some form of relief. So, yeah, I don't know how they're going to do it cleverly, but yeah, maybe they need to look at some of those taxes where they're what is it, like triple, quadruple tax.
Yeah.
So it's just like, hey, man, you gotta alleviate people a little bit with their finances. So, nah, I agree with you though, but it's just like, yeah, you can't sit around and complain, man. It's free. It is free to run. I mean, you gotta take certain steps and stuff, raise money, and stuff like that. But hell, it's open to a lot of people, and a lot of times, like you said, people be complaining about stuff. So it's like, hey, man, like you ain't even gotta really run. Get on those think tanks and just start that conversation and get creative versus like just complaining. Be like, hey, man, here's what y'all can do. Somebody dig into the tax code and see where some of that stuff could free up and stuff. But nah, this definitely was a good conversation, man. I saw that clip. I was like, damn. I was like,
Yeah.
I didn't never think about all those layers and stuff, but to hear it, it's like, yeah, we do get taxed quite a bit,
Yeah.
man.
Shout
But
out
nah,
to
just
shout out to the gentleman that broke down that, because you don't think about that in your everyday life. So definitely the conversation is needed, and at this point, we just starting the conversation. We just at the surface layer.
But it's just, when we do have like even conversations about relationships, that's why we always try to push people to think about economics and finances a little differently. Because, we 50-50 dudes and stuff. So we always advocate for like 2 salaries in a home. And this is kind of why. Because it's just like, man, when you start breaking down like one person's salary and stuff based on like just all the like taxes you don't think about and how like, your money is divided up. And then, we're trying to still do things traditionally. It's just like, man, your one person's salary does not go that far nowadays. So the way to beat the kind of the system sometimes is thinking outside the box. I know I said it in, one other podcast. Hey, you ain't getting that 1%, man. You better stop thinking like the 99. So,
Facts.
that's like, boy, me and my wife, we were like, look, we both gonna work and we gonna make sure we get ahead, man. We gonna beat out debt and all that stuff. So there is ways around it, man, where you can get some relief. But, I think people sometimes they just go with the flow of things. And, when they get to the end of the finish line, that money ain't looking right because they just didn't, look at things, think outside the box and, look at all these like different ways to, like I said, beat out debt. So yeah, nah, that's why I do like these conversations. It's like, hey, man, like your ego's only gonna hurt yourself because this system, it's already set up and it's established a certain way. It ain't changing, like you said, overnight. But anything else, man, before we head out?
Nah, pay your taxes.
Yeah,
Pay your
don't.
taxes or else.
You're gonna be up in a behind bars like Slick Rick. So it's like, man, you better pay them taxes.
You'll be behind bars or in a bad situation, because when you don't pay your taxes, what he didn't talk about is if you don't pay your taxes, then whatever you owed accrues interest. And
they getting that bread.
And it could be a simple mistake that you made, and IRS don't care. However many years ago that one little mistake is going to compound, and you're going to owe a lot more.
Well, just think, man, like taxes is how they took down like the mob and all that stuff. It wasn't because of like, really a lot of the wiretaps. It was like tax evasion and stuff. So, hey, they gonna get their money. They took out more stronger people than me, So it's like they could get them. I'm damn sure ain't playing with it. Yeah, my man Al Capone and stuff. So, but all right, y'all, we out of here. Peace.